70 million people. That is not a statistic. That is a number so large, the human mind refuses to feel it. So for the next 12 minutes, we are going to try.
The year is 1930. Paris has jazz, London has fog and purpose, Berlin has art, science, some of the greatest minds alive on Earth. The world is recovering, slowly, painfully, but recovering, from the First World War, the war that was supposed to end all wars. It didn't. What it did leave behind was a broken Germany, stripped of territory, crushed under war debt, humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles. 20% unemployment, a currency so worthless people burned it for heat. And into that desperation walked a man with a simple offer: someone to blame, someone to hate, and a promise that Germany would be great again. His name was Adolf Hitler. By 1933, he was Chancellor of Germany. By 1935, Jews had been stripped of citizenship by law. By 1938, Germany had swallowed Austria without firing a shot. Europe watched. Europe worried. Europe did nothing. They called it appeasement. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain flew to meet Hitler and came back waving a piece of paper. "Peace," he said, "in our time." He had 11 months.
September 1st, 1939. Before dawn, 1.5 million German soldiers crossed into Poland. No warning, no declaration, just invasion. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war on Germany. The Second World War had begun. But this was not the war of their fathers. No trenches, no stalemate, no slow, grinding death in mud. Hitler's generals had invented something new. They called it Blitzkrieg, lightning war. Tanks, aircraft, and infantry moving together faster than the enemy could think, not just attacking the body, attacking the mind, spreading panic, shattering command, making armies collapse before they could fight. Poland fell in 35 days. Then, in the spring of 1940, the lightning moved west. Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, gone in weeks. Then, France, the most powerful land army in Europe, protected by the Maginot Line, an enormous chain of fortresses France had spent a decade building. Germany went around it. France fell in 46 days. 338,000 Allied soldiers were trapped on the beaches of Dunkirk, France, surrounded with the sea at their backs. What happened next, no military planner would have dared put in a strategy document. Britain sent everything it had. Warships, yes, but also fishing boats, tugboats, pleasure yachts, private citizens crossing the English Channel under fire, pulling soldiers out of the water with their bare hands. They saved 338,000 lives. It was a miracle. It was also a retreat. Britain now stood alone, and Winston Churchill stood before Parliament and said the only thing left to say: "We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, we shall fight in the fields and in the streets, we shall never surrender." Hitler turned east. June 22nd, 1941. Operation Barbarossa. 3 million German soldiers, the largest invasion force in the history of human warfare, crossed into the Soviet Union. Hitler had told his generals this was not a war of soldiers. This was a war of annihilation. The Soviets were caught off guard. In weeks, Germany had advanced hundreds of miles. Entire Soviet armies were surrounded and captured. The losses were incomprehensible. But Russia is vast, and winter was coming. Then, December 7th, 1941, 7:55 in the morning, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. 350 Japanese aircraft appeared over the American naval base, and the bombs began to fall. 2 hours, 2,403 Americans dead. The next morning, Franklin D. Roosevelt stood before Congress. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked. America entered the war. The world now had two massive grinding fronts, Europe and the Pacific, and they would both have to be won.
Stop. Before we go any further, we have to stop here. Because behind the front lines, behind the generals and the maps and the strategy, something else was happening. The Holocaust. Beginning in 1941, the Nazi government of Germany began the systematic, industrialized, deliberate murder of Jewish people across every country they controlled. This was not a byproduct of war. This was the goal. 6 million Jewish men, women, and children murdered, 1/3 of every Jewish person alive on earth. They also murdered the Roma people, disabled people, political prisoners, Soviet prisoners of war, gay men. In total, up to 17 million human beings killed, documented, filed by a government on purpose. Among them, 1.5 million children. We say these numbers because we have to, because each number was a person. Each person had a name, a mother, a home, a first memory, a favorite song, something they were afraid of, something they loved. And what was done to them must never be looked away from. Not then, not now, not ever.
By late 1942, the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, Japan, controlled more of the Earth's surface than any empire in history. Then, the tide began to turn. Stalingrad. From August 1942 to February 1943, German and Soviet forces fought for a single Soviet city, building by building, floor by floor, room by room, sometimes hand to hand. Nearly 2 million casualties total. It is the bloodiest battle ever recorded in human history. When it ended, Germany's Sixth Army, once the pride of the entire Reich, surrendered in the snow. Hitler's generals knew the war in the East was lost. In North Africa, British forces defeated Rommel at El Alamein. The Axis was driven off the continent. In the Pacific, America was clawing back island by island, Midway, Guadalcanal, Tarawa, fighting some of the most savage close-quarters combat in military history against Japanese forces who had been told and believed that surrender was dishonor. And then, June 6, 1944, D-Day. 156,000 Allied soldiers, American, British, Canadian, crossed the English Channel in the darkness before dawn. They knew what was waiting. Heavily fortified beaches, machine gun nests, minefields. Thousands of German soldiers dug in, ordered to hold at any cost. The first waves of men died before they reached the sand. But they held the beach, and from that foothold, they broke Europe open. By early 1945, Germany was being crushed from both sides. Soviet forces, carrying the weight of 20 million of their own dead, drove from the east. Allied forces drove from the west. German cities, Cologne, Hamburg, Dresden, were reduced to rubble. Civilians had nothing left but basements and prayers. On April 30th, 1945, as Soviet tanks rolled through the burning streets of Berlin, Adolf Hitler retreated to his underground bunker and shot himself. 1 week later, Germany surrendered, unconditionally. May 8th, 1945. VE Day, victory in Europe. Across London, New York, Paris, Moscow, people poured into the streets. They laughed, they wept, they kissed strangers. They looked up at a sky with no bombers in it for the first time in years. But the war was not over. In the Pacific, Japan fought on, fanatically, desperately. Kamikaze pilots flew their planes directly into American warships. Military planners estimated that a land invasion of Japan could cost 1 million Allied lives, many more Japanese. Then, August 6, 1945. A single American aircraft flew over the Japanese city of Hiroshima and dropped one bomb. 80,000 people died instantly. The city simply ceased to exist. 3 days later, Nagasaki. On August 15, 1945, Japan surrendered. The war was over.